How did you get started with the UFC?
I've been with the UFC now a little over 13 years, and I come from a boxing background. And I started my career in boxing and with Joe Frazier. Then I decided, you know, things got a little lean, and I wanted to stay in the sport, but didn't know exactly what it was I wanted to do because I sure wasn't going to box anymore. I did that. I had 2 fights. I won the first one and lost the second one, and then I picked up a pen. So I knew, though, from that experience in my time with Joe and working in the industry, that there was a real disconnect between fighter and promoter in terms of what the guy needed and how he wanted things done and if he needed or whatever he needed done. So I decided that I was going to try to get in the middle and become that disconnect between the fighter and the promoter. And luckily enough, it was Butch Lewis, who at the time had Michael Spinks, Pharrell, I think it was the Finger Twins, and a couple of other guys he had, and was just about to pick up Bernard Hopkins. Gave me that shot. Know that I was no longer going to be with Joe and I was looking for something to do, and he was promoting a fight. And, you know, Butch was, you know, he had a lot of money, but he was pretty lazy when it came to doing manual labor, so he gave me a shot. He said, do what it is that you think needs to get done and report to me and let me know what it is, which for me was awesome.
So how did the connection go from boxing to mixed martial arts and Fertitta Brothers and Dana White?
I did a couple of shows in Atlantic City, and then I had a promoter that hired me to do Kostya and Zab Judah in Vegas. And this promoter, a guy named Bernie Dillon, knew Dana White. And somehow they were having conversations, and he knew Dana was about to start an organization and was looking for people to put in place. So Bernie and the promoter got to Dana and told Dana, we know this guy that kind of logistically puts our stuff together. You know, maybe you should talk to him. So during the weigh-in of that fight, during the fight week, they set up a meeting between myself, Dana, and the promoter, just for like about a 20-minute chat, which we did. Dana came in, you know, and I remember to the day, he had on a blue shirt, gray slacks, and he was just low-key. He was soft-spoken and low-key, and a nice smile and a firm handshake. And he said, listen, you know, we're starting this organization, and I'm probably going to do a fight. Now, this was in November, roughly November, December of maybe 2000. And he said, probably the first of the year, we're going to be doing some fights, and if you're available, you know, well, that's how I made my living. So, of course, I was going to be available. And you pay me and respect me, you got me. Plain and simple. Me and my loyalty. So, the first of the year, he gives me a phone call and said, I got a fight in a couple of months. I had no other boxing event, so quite naturally, I was there. You know, I don't watch the fights. And I don't watch the fights because during the course of the week, I get very close to those fighters in the camps. You know, I'm a grandfather, so I have children. And when I come here on site with these fighters in their camps, they're like my children. So I got to look out for them all week. I got to tend to them all week. And like any parent, you don't want to send your child to school, have him beat up, come home, and you got to tend to him. So I don't watch these fighters in the cage. I can't stand to see someone lose a fight and the disappointment and the dejection from losing. Even though everybody here wins, the biggest achievement is getting into the UFC. Plain and simple. But when they get in that cage and they lose, man, that shit breaks my heart. I cannot look at that.
What's the easiest part of the job?
Showing up is the easiest part of my job. Just coming in, getting into a groove, getting into a rhythm, hyping myself up, getting psyched up, and knowing that what it is I'm about to do is something that I love to do, something I'm allowed to do the way I know how to do it. I've never had Dana or, Lorenzo or any of the Fertittas or anyone really say, this is how it's to be done. They allowed me to do it the way I do it, but at the same time, I guess they had the confidence to know that I had enough within myself to stay within the business plan and to stay within the operational procedures and kind of the foresight to see where they were going with it and do it with knowledge, respect, and hard work. And that's what I did.
When you want to get motivated in life, you just have to be around Burt Watson. That's just a fact. But what about when you're not feeling it? What about when you're down? How do you motivate yourself?
My family motivates me tremendously. I love my family, I love my children, I love my grandchildren. I have a great support system. My wife supports me. My mom, who is still alive and still very cantankerous. And if you can imagine, my mom's personality is 3 times mine, even at 87, and it gives me a comfort level that I can see them, I can be around them, and I can watch my kids grow, and I can see the parents that they have become and the people that they have become. And I gotta feel that, they've been watching me since they were little ones, so whatever I give off, I know I'm gonna give back and they're gonna either respect it or disrespect it. So when I'm by myself and I got downtime, it's my family, black and white TV, that's Gunsmoke, Paladin, Half Gun Will Travel, and being home. Just shutting down, locking down, and chilling.
This is a loaded question, obviously, because we're talking about years and years and generations of experience that you've gone through, but we want Burt Watson's most memorable moment, and it's not going to be easy. Maybe give us one from the boxing world and one from the mixed martial arts world, perhaps?
Well, if in the boxing world, I had a couple of them, memorable moments. There was a time just when Joe had retired and someone came to me and said, listen, I'm trying to do this video project with Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, and George Foreman. But we need a lead, be it Joe or Muhammad, to get the other guys in. And so I went to Joe and I, told him that there was an opportunity to make some money. That was the way I had to approach Joe. And with that lead, they had us to contact the other guys since Joe was on board. Then they got Muhammad, and then they got Larry, George, and all the rest of them. And it wasn't until that time, and that project was called Champions Forever. They put all 5 of those guys together and did a documentary of the fights they had between each other. And when they decided to let these guys travel, they had one person, and that was me. And for 2.5 years, I did the tour with those 5 guys, and it was an unbelievable experience for me. I got to meet these guys, I got to know them personally, I got to know who I could sit together and who I couldn't sit together. I know who wanted a big car, who wanted a small car. I got to meet the Queen, I got to meet Lady Di, just different people that I would have never met. And I think the second most memorable experience for me was that 3 weeks after getting out of prison, I had the opportunity to meet Nelson Mandela with Joe Frazier in the bottom of the United Nations building, just us. And that was, at that time, it wasn't as memorable or as much of history to me as it is now, but it was something I would never, ever forget.
And anything from the world of mixed martial arts? UFC?
UFC the UFC happened to me so quickly, and it exploded so quickly. I didn't have time to think about what was going on or what was happening around me. But, you know, UFC 100, the fact that 100 of anything is a ton. When we got to UFC 100, I then kind of realized where I was and what was going on and how big that was and how big it was getting. And then I started to really see fighters like BJ Penn and Matt Hughes and Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture, and, you know, and not to forget any, but to see those guys, those kids become men and grow up and have families, you know, and me doing a show with Randy's son after doing his dad. Not only did it tell me how old I was, but, you know, it was an experience for me. And then and now I start experiencing memorable things and memorable moments, you know.
There isn't anyone that I don't come across from the UFC PR staff, fighters, managers, that when I mention your name, the conversation comes up, it's always, how does he do it? And everyone kind of, you can see their body language change and be like, I don't know how he does it. So the question is, how do you do it? And how much longer do you want to do it for?
Even I don't know how I do it. And I don't try to figure it out, because if I figure it out and get an answer, it might stop me. It might slow me down, and I might not be able to do it. But a couple of things that I do is that you take care of your body and your mind, and it'll take care of you. I rest as hard as I work, okay? I am never up running around past 9 o'clock at night. Although there's a few people that might say they've seen me at the bar at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and that is not me, okay? But when I'm done during the course of the day, I rest. I go to bed. Again, black and white TV. I got DVDs that I travel with to watch my favorite Westerns. I go to bed early, and I get up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, the early bird catches the snakes. Worms don't bite you, baby. So I'm up early for all of that. I get myself prepared. I get up early, like 6 o'clock. I have from 6 to 9 with just me, just to prepare for the upcoming shows, to prepare for all that traveling. And sometimes it's a, you know, I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, and I got to sit in the bed for a minute, because I forget where I am, and hotel furniture doesn't move, baby. You get up in the middle of the night and walk into hotel furniture, yo! So I get up and I have to adjust myself and remember where I am. And, you know, I just recently went to sleep in Vegas, woke up in China, went to sleep in China and woke up in London, went to sleep in London and woke up in Dallas, and now I'm gonna go to sleep this weekend and wake up in Brazil. You know, how do you do it? I don't know, but it is a blessing that I can do it. 100%, baby. It's like those professional athletes. I like to think and feel that I am a professional athlete. I have to perform at the highest level all the time. I don't, you know, I keep in my mind, you don't get paid for a no-show. I keep that in my head, you know, so, and I really, honestly, in my head, I like to think that I am very good at what I do. I can be the best at what I do. And to do that, you have to maintain and sustain and keep on rolling.
There was a time, I believe it was in Montreal, bus vans, they pull up to the hotel where Watson has to get out and make sure the boys, and the ladies perhaps, get into that hotel. There was a bystander on the road that thought it was a good idea to challenge Burt Watson, perhaps. Can you tell us that story?
We were coming back in Montreal from the weigh-in, and I had a bus, the two corners. I have the red corner in one bus and the blue corner in another bus. So we pull down the street and the traffic's congested and the bus is stopped, and I could see the hotel maybe 50 yards away, but the traffic wasn't moving. So I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna just stop this bus, get them off, and let them go in the hotel, because it was after the weigh-in. So I stopped the bus, not knowing that the bus was in front of a parking garage. So I stopped the bus, and I'm guiding everybody off the bus, go to the hotel, go to the hotel. In the meantime, I hear a horn behind me, but I'm thinking the horn is in the street. But there's a guy behind me trying to get out of the parking lot, which, granted, I should not have been blocking the parking lot, okay. So he's honking the horn, and I just kind of keep getting everybody. Next thing I know, this guy grabs me by the arm and spins me around. Well, I went with it because I thought it was one of my guys getting me out of the way. And when I turned around, I looked into the face of a total stranger. In my head, and I know I can't say that on television, so I won't say it, but I'm like, what the hell did you just do? He looked at me, he said, who the H do you think you are? Yada, 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 you and those darn fighters. Well, he obviously been sitting there a while to see who it was on the bus. Well, I went like this to kind of give him a little more words, and when I went like that, that guy disappeared. They had jumped off the bus and jacked him up. I won't tell you the names who did it, but they came off the bus, they lift. Next thing I know, this guy's up on the hood of his car, his legs dangling like this, his coat's twisted. He's like, oh, stop, let me down, quit it. So then I found myself having to defend him. Because then I said, let that guy, put him down. And they dropped him. Bam! I said, now get out of here. And they got off and they walked to the hotel, and his wife, call the cops, call you. She called me a barbarian or something. And her husband jumps up and I said, you know what, bruh? You do not walk in a cave and mess with cubs while the mother's sitting on top of them. I said, you just walked into a cave and messed with a bear full of cubs, baby. But I felt real good about that. Real good.
All right. That was awesome. Weight cutting. You've seen it change for the better part of, I'm going to go with over 30 years?
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. There must be some, I mean, when you look at the science of weight cutting, what some of these guys do, because the worst fear that a lot of these guys have, they tell me, is when I land, I got to go see Burt. I can't tell Burt, I can't lie to Burt because he knows. So when you look at the science of weight cutting right now, and then what guys have to go through, what they've gone through in the past or what they go through now, is it to the point now where it's down to a good science, or is it still guys mentally still can't do it properly?
Well, there is a very big difference in weight cutting in boxing and then in MMA. In boxing, if you have a guy week of the fight who is 5 pounds overweight, that's catastrophe. The fight may not happen because that means he's got to cut, he comes in at 5 pounds, he's got to cut that amount of weight during the course of the week. And boxers cut weight differently. You know, they jump rope, they very seldom use a sauna, dry or steam. You know, most of theirs is just exercising and running it out. And they cut it, and sometimes they don't. In MMA, it's a whole different world. They're wrestlers. They come in a little heavier. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much heavier, but they come in a little heavier, and they're used to doing that since they were little children and cutting weight. Is there a science to it? No. Because if there was a science, everybody would do the same thing almost the same way. Everybody has their own method and their way of cutting weight. I'm not in agreement with a lot of weight cut during the course of the week because of whatever it is that they might have to do. And granted, I tell them at the beginning of the week, no sleep medication, no diuretics, nothing for any type of head cold, hay fever, allergies, you know, just different things like that. I tell them try not to take aspirin, Advil, Aleve, ibuprofen. Those are NSAIDs. They thin your blood. I'm not a doctor, but I've learned that over the course of the years. But I try to tell them not to do those things, and when they cut weight, do it as legally as possible so that it doesn't affect you at the end of the week. And you know what? Everybody, some guys use bathtubs, some guys don't use bathtubs. Most of them use steams, use dry saunas, some of them use steam. Some guys just run it out. You know, they cut salt, water, and diet. Either in that order or reverse, but those are the three things. How they do that, some of them run it off, some of them go to the sauna, some of them, I don't know the science to it. You know, it's anguish for me. That is the worst thing in the world. To me, the most disrespectful thing you can do, no, there's two of them, is be late and not make weight. Those two things to me are just totally disrespectful to me and everybody else around. But you know what? The only science to it now for me is that I follow them like hounds all week. I catch them when they get off the plane. I check them 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm always in their face to let them know that you have got to make weight. They always tell me, oh, don't worry about it, baby, I got it. No, baby, you ain't got it, okay? Because they say that until they get up on the scale. When they get up on the scale and the official calls out their weight, they look at the scale and then they look at me. It ain't me and it ain't that scale, bruh. No. But weigh-in is my worst day. Absolutely my worst day. If I got 26 fighters, I make weight 26 times, and that's not fun.
When a guy or girl doesn't make weight, do you feel guilty? Do you feel, because you know Dana and Joe and Lorenzo, and you're like, do you feel like you failed?
I feel failure when someone doesn't make weight. I feel like I've let someone down, I haven't done my job, because it is my job to see to it that they get the things that they need to cut weight. It is my job to see to it that they do the things that they're supposed to do. And cutting weight is a major part of what they're supposed to do. Making weight, that's 100%. You're fighting in a weight category. You're supposed to make the weight. So, you know, I take pride in what I do to get to that point. And when it doesn't happen, I feel failure. I'm disappointed in them. I'm mad as hell with them. You know, it's disrespectful, and I feel it. I've never been blamed for somebody not making weight, but I'm gonna tell you, man, it eats me out when they don't make weight.
Does the father in you or grandfather in you ever kick in, not as a disciplinarian, as a mentor? Because you look at a young and up-and-comer that maybe consistently doesn't make weight, and you look at him and I've been there. I've been with Joe Frazier. I've been with Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz, and I've seen these guys. These are world champions, George St. Pierre, and you're telling me you're not going to make weight? You don't want to make weight? Do you get to that point where you have to get into a motivational situation? Do you give up and say, you know what, this guy can't be a fighter?
I motivate these guys basically from the passion that I have in my heart. That's where it comes from. And I tell them, first of all, your biggest achievement is getting here. That's first. But then it's harder to stay here than it is to get here. Everybody can't handle fame. Everybody is not made to be famous or handle everything that comes with fame. And a lot of times when that stuff comes, there's a lot of pressure on you. Cutting weight is probably the simplest thing you can do in getting to this level. So why make it difficult for you and or me? And then I'll say to them, you know, if it was left up to me and you didn't make weight, you'd be home watching it on TV or pumping gas. I say it, that's the disciplinarian and the Marine Corps that comes out of me. But, you know, I let them know with the seriousness of my eyes and my face, I'm gonna tell you something, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be here when you try to get back here. Don't make it that hard on yourself, baby. Everybody wants to be where you are. And I did not read that in a book. Believe me, now you can go and, if you want to, and think it's with ease and not make weight and think everybody's gonna put up with it every time you do it. Not gonna happen, baby. Not gonna happen.
One thing you've explained to me over the years is when the two guys get on the stage and step off that scale, now they got to go nose to nose. Do not disrespect Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta by slapping your opponent or doing something. Can you explain?
Fighting for free is overrated and hurts for nothing. You get paid to fight at this level. You know, all that posturing and nudging and pushing, it's disrespectful to yourself, the organization, me, Dana, Lorenzo, Joe Silva, who's gonna give you your next job, you know, and these guys are fighters. When a fight breaks out, it's a fight. That means everybody within range starts swinging, baby, because it's gonna get rough. So the danger of that, you got Dana, Lorenzo, Joe, you got the Octagon girls, you got the entire world watching and looking, you know, and there might be some children on that stage. So I put in their head first. You don't like him? You want to get him tomorrow when you get paid for it, not the day when it's just for show. F the stage, do it in the cage. That's what I say to them, okay?
When Burt Watson comes in around that dressing room and gives off that signal, whether they're fighting or not, whether they're next or not, when you start almost that howl, the war chant, the man in the back, and you start going, these guys get a chemical reaction. They know now it's time.
Time to go to work, baby.
Do you realize that when you do that, other human beings come to attention and they know it's time to go to work?
You know, I started yelling and screaming and motivating them basically to keep myself awake. That's initially how that started, because that was a long night. I'm up and down because my intensity level is up here from 6 o'clock in the morning till I'm done. So running in and out of the dressing rooms and the halls, got a little tired. So I said, you know what? I'm not running up and down that hall anymore. I'm gonna stand here and call them out of that dressing room. And I did it, and it worked. Then it became a signal to go to work, baby. It became a signal to the fighters that, you know what? It's time to roll. That's that work bell. And they got used to it, they know. And I always knew, like I said, to put a bridge between the promoter and the fighter. Even in boxing, there are times fighters are in the dressing room and really don't know when they're next, when they're up, when they're going. And if they're sitting in the dressing room with no monitors or nothing, they really don't know. And then television or the production comes and say, they gotta go, then the fighter has to get himself together. I said, I'm not gonna let that happen anymore. I'm gonna let them know 1 hour before that it's time for them to start preparing to get, and I'm gonna let them know when it's 5 minutes, baby. 30 minutes, you got a dirty 30 before we roll to that hole. 5, you got straight up 5 before we go live. And it's just started coming and coming, and now it's got to a point where some guys won't move unless they hear it. Some guys don't like it, it scares them. But you got bigger fish to fry, baby, than get scared before you get in that cage. But, you know, it's when I don't do it, they want it. And now sometimes I don't feel like screaming all night long, honestly, you know? But then when I don't, I can't go to work. I don't put that work in. So you know what? I put that work in for me and them. And I let them know it's time to roll to the hole, baby, all night long.